What are closing costs and how much are they? That's kind of not so complicated question. So, what are closing costs? Well, that's simple. Closing costs are the costs for getting the loan done. Okay. So, they're kind of divided into three different buckets. The first bucket is the charges that the lender is going to charge you. This is going to be like, are there fees that have to go to their underwriting, processing, different fees to keep the lights on, stuff like that. There's also could be where there's points or fees for the interest rate. They're going to show up in the first bucket as well. Again, these are fees that are going to be attached to the loan and talked about beforehand, so you're not surprised. But in that first bucket, when you're looking at a loan estimate, your bank fees are going to be in that one. The second bucket are the third party fees. Okay. These are fees that are being charged not necessarily by the lender, but by third parties that have to get paid because they're required to get the loan. That can include a credit report, an appraisal, a reinspection fee. Sometimes you may have to get a different type of appraisal done. And so, what a lot of lenders do is they're going to overestimate these fees in this bucket to make sure they're covered in case there is a third party that comes in at the end that you need. For example, if you get an appraisal done and there's repairs needed, well, that appraiser has to go back out to appraise the home. They're going to charge a fee for that. So all of that has to be disclosed up front on your loan estimate to say, hey, this is a potential fee that could be on your mortgage, that could be charged at settlement. We want you to be aware of it. Okay. 99% of the time, loan officers like me, all we want to do is make sure you're aware of the most it could cost in the beginning so that you're prepared for the worst. Now, in the third bucket, these are your title fees. Now, they're not necessarily third-party fees because title is on every single mortgage, and you do get to shop around for a title. So since you're able to shop around for whichever title company you want to use, they consider that in a different bucket, okay? However, when we disclose these fees, even if you haven't picked a company yet, we have to make sure that we're disclosing a proper amount in that, so you're not stunned at closing if the fees end up being higher. So we have to disclose a pretty accurate title fee estimate, even if we're basing the estimate on a company that you're not picking. I know that was a lot. So basically, you have the lender fee, you have the third party fees that you can't shop for that we have to order. So again, your appraisal, credit report, flood start, things like that. And then in your third bucket, you have your title fees that you can shop around for, but we have to give you an estimate of approximately how much they can cost. Okay. Now, with all these different buckets, there are limits to how off we can be. In the first bucket, we can't be wrong. So we can't short you and say, oh, there are no bank fees. And then at the final closing disclosure, have $1,000 listed there. That's not warranted unless there was a proper change to create that. Okay. The second bucket are the fees that you are required to pay for, but you can't pick. Again, there's a little flexibility in there because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. For example, we don't know if we're going to need a reinspection fee, but most good lenders do disclose certain fees just to make you aware that it could be charged. Then finally, we have the third bucket, which are your title fees, which we have a 10% flexibility on our accuracy for. So when you're getting a loan estimate from a client or if you're a client, you're getting a loan estimate from a loan officer, just remember that it's as accurate as they can make it. And they're not trying to rip you off. They're not trying to overcharge you for things. Okay. There may just be some fees on there that they want to disclose in case of an emergency. But if you ever have questions about closing costs, make sure you have that conversation with your lender and ask them what it includes. They'll be able to explain it and basically answer your question. Now, how much those fees are, it's all going to vary. It's all going to vary because, again, every loan is different. Every client is different. So unfortunately, that also means closing costs are going to be different. And the last thing I'm going to add is there is a difference between closing costs and escrow and down payment. Okay. So your total cost to buy a house includes your down payment, your closing costs, and the amount you're going to need for your escrow, or sometimes it's called prepaid, because it does include other items such as your recording fees with your townships. It's going to include what you need to start your escrow account. And then remember the last video when we talked about escrow, that includes the money we need for your taxes and your homeowner's insurance. So there are two different categories of closing costs. Okay, your prepaids. I like to explain it as these are the money you're going to pay anyway, whether you're buying with cash or with a mortgage. Then you have your closing costs. Again, they're required for the loan. And then you have your down payment. And your down payment is the difference between the loan amount and the sale price. Okay. That was a lot. It is kind of complicated. If you still have questions, do not hesitate to put a comment in the comments or shoot me a DM with a very specific question if you have it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.